The frost hung thick on the pines of Appalachia, each needle kissed silver by the early December chill. Somewhere deep in the hills, far from paved roads, streetlights, and the long arm of the law, a smoky wisp curled into the air. It wasn't from a fireplace, nor was it the kind of smoke that spelled trouble. It was the sweet, telltale sign of mash cooking down in a copper still, tended by hands that had done the same for decades. Inside the small hidden shack, warmed by the fire of tradition and good old mountain ingenuity, Digger Mains wiped his brow with an old rag and looked over at his longtime partner, Mark Ramsey. "Well," Digger said with a grin as he adjusted the heat under the still, "looks like we've got ourselves a good run ahead for Christmas." Mark chuckled, swirling a mason jar in his hand and taking a sniff of the clear liquid inside. "Ain't nothing says holiday cheer like a little apple pie shine, or maybe a cranberry-infused batch if we're feeling fancy. Two men, legendary for their old-school techniques and no-nonsense approach to crafting moonshine, were gearing up for something special. Every December, after the mad rush of fall distilling, they took time to give back to the people who made their outlaw livelihoods a legacy: family, friends, and fellow distillers. This year, they wanted to do it bigger than ever. And so began the Merry Moonshine Run. They started at dawn on December 20th, their trusty pickup loaded with gift jars, each lovingly sealed with a waxed lid and a hand-scrolled tag. Some were filled with classic white lightning, others with cinnamon spice, vanilla oak, or a limited edition holiday peppermint patty blend they'd invented late one night after sampling too much of their own product. Their first stop, the legendary Tim Smith's Hideaway. Tim, ever the entrepreneurial shiner turned legal distillery owner, greeted them with a hearty laugh and a hug. "Well, I'll be, if it ain't Santa," and his elf raised an eyebrow. "Watch it, Tim. I'm the one with the beard. I'm Santa." Mark here can be the elf. Tim brought out a batch of his own. Bourbon-aged brandy, deep amber and smooth as the Smoky Mountain wind. They swapped sips and stories, the kind of tales that never made it to air, of hidden stills in hollow logs, chases through pine woods, and the bonds of brotherhood forged over bubbling mash. "Let's give the people a proper holiday," Tim said, slapping a few cases into their truck. From the heart of the hills to the soles of the stills. Next came Tickle, waiting for them near a creek, sitting in a lawn chair with a banjo in one hand and a half-empty jar in the other. "You boys bring the party?" He grinned, standing up and hugging Digger with a laugh. Tickle had his own twist on Christmas, mistletoe moonshine. He swore it had aphrodisiac properties. Digger tried a sip and promptly coughed it back up. "Tickle," Mark said, wiping tears of laughter, "you put motor oil in this?" Just grinned wider. "No, just a little pine essence and wintergreen. For the breath." But even Tickle had his own jars to offer. They clinked glasses, tossed a few logs on the fire, and spent the evening telling ghost stories of old moonshiners, like the one about Harlan One-Toe Jenkins, who could hear revenuers coming from 5 miles away. Christmas Eve found them deeper in the mountains, where snow dusted the trail and the only light came from the glowing windows of Popcorn Sutton's old cabin, now lovingly restored by those who keep his spirit alive. They left a jar on the stoop, with a note: "To the old-timers and the legends. May your spirit always shine." Digger, Mark, and the crew. At the shack, with the fire crackling and a ham slowly roasting in a smoker out back, the distillers gathered. Was Mike Cockrell and Jerry Benson, who brought jars of blueberry shine that tasted like summer even in the coldest part of winter. There was Danielle Parton, yes, kin to Dolly, whose legal distillery had started producing a chocolate coffee blend that made even Diva speechless. As the night fell, and the jars were passed around. Someone turned on a radio, crackling out bluegrass carols. The moon climbed high over the ridge, casting silver light on the snowy pines, and Digger raised a glass. To the families that stick together, to the mountains that hide our secrets, and to the fire that never goes out, long as there's a story to tell and a still to tend. They all toasted. Come Christmas morning, the people of the hollers and hills woke to find mason jars on their doorsteps, some tied with ribbons, others with sprigs of pine. No one knew exactly where they came from. Some said they saw Digger's truck speeding down the trail in the dead of night. Others swore they heard banjo music and a coon hollering out in the trees. No one turned the jars down. In towns from Mahi Valley to the Cumberland Gap, folks raised a toast to the Moonshiners, not just for the drink, but for the tradition, the resilience, and the rebel spirit Appalachia so unique. As the season wound down, and the last of the snow melted into springtime streams, Digger stood by his still, looking out over the ridge. You know, Mark, he said, I think this might have been the best Christmas yet. Mark nodded, sipping from a jar. Ain't about what you get, it's about what you give. Digger smirked. Especially if what you give is 120 proof. They both laughed, and somewhere out in the woods, an owl hooted, the trees whispered, and the copper still bubbled on. From Digger, Mark, and all the distillers of Discovery's Moonshiners. May your jar never run dry, your still never be found, and your holidays be filled with firelight, good company, and a little taste of tradition. Merry Moonshine to y'all. The Appalachian Mountains stood cloaked in a blanket of snow, their peaks dusted with the first frost of winter. In the heart of Cobb County, Tennessee, a small cabin nestled among the pines, its chimney puffing a steady stream of smoke into the crisp air. Inside, the warmth of a crackling fire contrasted with the chill outside, casting a golden glow on the faces gathered around the hearth. Digger Mains, his trademark overalls and wide-brimmed hat still in place, leaned back in his chair, a contented smile playing on his lips. Beside him sat Mark Ramsey, his longtime friend and partner in the art of moonshining. The two had spent countless hours perfecting their craft, and tonight was no different. But this evening held a special significance. It was Christmas Eve, and they were about to share their holiday traditions with friends old and new. Well, Mark, Digger began, his voice carrying the weight of years spent in the hills. I reckon it's time to spread a little holiday cheer. Mark nodded, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Ain't nothing says Christmas like a jar of good shine. The door creaked open, and in stepped Tickle, his ever-present grin lighting up the room. Did someone say shine? He asked, holding up a bottle of his own concoction. Thought I'd bring a little something to add to the festivities. Lotta filled the cabin as Tickle joined the group, and soon the table was laden with jars of moonshine in various flavors, apple pie, cinnamon spice, and even a new batch infused with elderberries, a nod to the season's bounty. The air was thick with the scent of distilled spirits and the warmth of friendship. As the evening wore on, stories flowed as freely as the moonshine. Tales of past runs, close calls with the law, and the ever-present challenge of keeping their craft alive in a changing world. Digger, ever the storyteller, regaled the group with a particularly harrowing tale from his early days. Back then, he said, taking a slow sip from his jar, we didn't have fancy equipment or hidden cabins. Just a still in the woods and a whole lot of nerve. Mark chuckled. And a fair bit of luck. Luck and a good recipe, Digger replied with a wink. The conversation turned to the future, of passing on their knowledge to the next generation, ensuring that the art of moonshining would continue to thrive. Digger's eyes grew serious as he spoke. We ain't getting any younger, he said quietly. It's up to folks like Kimbell to carry the torch. Kimbell, A young apprentice who had recently joined their ranks nodded earnestly. "I'm ready," he said, determination in his voice. The group fell into a comfortable silence, each person reflecting on the legacy they were part of. Then, Tickle broke the quiet. "Well, since it's Christmas," he said with a grin, "how about we make a toast?" Everyone raised their jars, and Digger led the group in a heartfelt toast. "To tradition," he began, "to friends, old and new, and to the spirit that keeps us going." "To Moonshine," Mark added, his voice filled with pride. "To the hills that raised us," Tickle chimed in. "And to the future," Kimball concluded. The clink of jars echoed through the cabin, a sound as old as the mountains themselves. As the night drew to a close, the group stood together, looking out the window at the snow-covered landscape. The world outside was still, peaceful, a stark contrast to the lively gathering within. Yet, in that moment, the two worlds seemed to merge. The traditions of the past, the bonds of friendship, and the promise of the future all intertwined, creating a tapestry of memories that would last a lifetime. Digger turned to the group, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "May the spirit of the season fill your hearts," he said, "and may the shine always flow." With that, the group dispersed into the night, each carrying with them the warmth of the evening and the knowledge that, no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them together. This piece captures the essence of the Moonshiners series, highlighting the camaraderie, tradition, and resilience of Digger, Mark, and their fellow distillers. If you'd like, I can also provide a printable version or adapt it into a holiday greeting card format.